The Vraxian warships emerged from the cloud cover like obsidian daggers, their hull plating absorbing sunlight rather than reflecting it. Within minutes, they had positioned themselves above every major city on Earth, a display of coordination that made humanity's most advanced military maneuvers look like child's play. Captain Marcus Reynolds of the U.S. Theodore Roosevelt watched his radar screen light up with more contacts than he'd seen in 20 years of service. "Get me a count on those bogies," he ordered, his voice steady despite the fear churning in his gut. Before his crew could respond, every screen on the bridge flickered and went dark. The first broadcast came without warning, overriding every communication channel worldwide. The alien voice spoke perfect English, yet something about its tone made blood run cold. "People of Earth, we are the Vraxian Empire. Your world now falls under our protection and authority. Resistance will result in immediate corrective action." In the UN Security Council chamber, emergency meetings devolved into chaos as representatives argued over how to respond. The Chinese delegate was mid-sentence when the Vraxians demonstrated their power. A beam of crimson energy lanced down from the largest ship, precisely excising Tokyo's financial district from the Earth's surface. The attack left a perfect circular crater, its edges glass smooth and still glowing. Aboard the Vraxian command ship, Fleet Commander Zixtel received the first warning from his science division. "Honored Commander," the lead researcher's voice trembled slightly, "we're detecting unusual energy signatures from the planet's ocean trenches. The patterns don't match any known natural phenomenon." Zixtel dismissed the concern with a gesture of his upper appendage. "This world's primitive defenses are no match for our technology. Prepare the first wave of ground forces." Deep below the Pacific Ocean, ancient systems began to stir. The pressure sensors throughout the Mariana Trench recorded a series of regular pulses, like a giant heart beginning to beat after eons of slumber. The research station nestled near the trench's edge picked up the first changes, its instruments detecting something that shouldn't have been possible at such depths. Heat signatures in perfect geometric patterns. The Vraxian invasion pods pierced the atmosphere like metallic rain, each one carrying 100 warriors bred for conquest. As they descended, their sensors swept the planet's surface, mapping defense installations and population centers. None of their sophisticated equipment detected the energy web beginning to form in the waters below. In the Pentagon's underground command center, General Sarah Martinez watched the satellite feeds with growing horror. "How many?" she asked, her eyes fixed on the screen showing the devastation in Tokyo. "Over 10,000 ships in high orbit, ma'am," her aide reported. "And those are just the ones we can track. Our best estimates suggest their ground forces could number in the millions." The general's response was cut short by a priority alert from the Pacific Fleet. The water temperature around their vessels had begun to rise dramatically, and their sonar officers reported strange harmonics coming from the deep. Aboard the Vraxian command ship, the science officer's warnings became more urgent. "Commander, the energy readings are intensifying. These patterns, they're organized, structured. This can't be natural." Zixtel finally turned his attention to the data, his 4 eyes narrowing as he studied the readouts. For the first time since the invasion began, a flicker of uncertainty crossed his features. The energy signatures were unlike anything in the Empire's archives, and they were growing stronger by the second. "Launch the second wave," he ordered, pushing aside his doubts. "We'll secure this world before these anomalies can interfere with our plans." As the order was given, the first invasion pods breached the ocean's surface, their wake disturbing waters that had remained untouched for millions of years. Deep below, ancient machinery hummed to life, responding to a threat it had been programmed to recognize. The Vraxians had made their first move, but the game they'd stumbled into was far older and more dangerous than they could have imagined. In their arrogance, they had mistaken Earth for an unprotected world. They were about to learn just how fatal that error would prove to be. Dr. Amanda Sullivan pressed her face against the reinforced viewport of deep-sea station Nautilus, watching the impossible unfold in the darkness below. The abyssal plain of the Mariana Trench had always been a place of mystery, but nothing in her 15 years of marine research had prepared her for this. "Doctor, you need to see these readings," called out Dr. James Mitchell, his voice tense, as he monitored the station's advanced sensor array. "The seismic patterns. They're not random. There's a pattern here that defies everything we know about plate tectonics." The station's external lights illuminated a small section of the ocean floor, where ancient markings had begun to pulse with a soft blue-green luminescence. The geometric patterns stretched out beyond their field of vision, creating complex intersecting lines that seemed to move with an inner life of their own. "Cross-reference these patterns with the Global Archaeological Database," Amanda ordered, her mind racing. "Something about these symbols looks familiar." She pulled up recent images from cave systems in France, South Africa, and the Yucatan Peninsula on her tablet. The similarities were undeniable. Above them, the world was at war. The Vraxian ground forces had made landfall in major coastal cities, their advanced weapons cutting through human defenses like paper. But here, in the crushing depths of Earth's deepest trench, something far more ancient was stirring. The station's communication system crackled to life. "Nautilus, this is Naval Command. We're detecting massive temperature fluctuations throughout the Pacific Basin. What the hell is happening down there?" Before Amanda could respond, the entire station shuddered. The external cameras showed the ocean floor splitting apart, not with the violence of an earthquake, but with the precise geometry of an opening flower. From the gaps, structures of crystalline material rose upward, their surfaces covered in the same glowing symbols they'd observed earlier. "My God," James whispered, his eyes fixed on the spectacle. The myths were true. All those ancient stories about advanced civilizations, about guardians sleeping in the deep. We weren't just finding archaeological remains. We were looking at an instruction manual. Amanda's team had spent years studying the mysterious symbols found in ancient sites worldwide, theorizing they represented some sort of universal language. Now, as she watched those same symbols power up ancient machinery, she realized they'd only scratched the surface of their true purpose. The station's sensors began registering new energy signatures, unlike anything their instruments were designed to measure. These readings suggest the structures are drawing power from the Earth's core itself, Dr. Emily Torres reported from her station. "Whatever these things are, they're part of a planetary scale system." A sudden impact rocked the station. Through the viewport, they watched as a Vraxian invasion pod plummeted past them, its hull cracking under the immense pressure. The alien vehicle crashed into one of the rising crystalline structures, and for a moment, everything went still. Then the structure responded. Patterns of light raced across its surface, and a pulse of energy rippled outward through the water. The station's instruments went wild, recording energy levels that should have been impossible at these depths. "It's some kind of scanning beam," James announced, analyzing the data. "The system is assessing the threat." "Wait, look at this." He pulled up a complex readout on the main screen. "These energy signatures, they're similar to human brainwave patterns, but far more complex." Amanda felt a chill run down her spine as the implications hit her. "We're not just observing this system," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's observing us. All those years of research, all those mysterious symbols. They were tests. The system was waiting to see if we could recognize its patterns." As if in response to her words, new symbols began appearing on the rising structures. These were different, more dynamic, more urgent, and somehow, deep in her mind, Amanda felt she could almost understand them. The station's communication system crackled again, but this time with a different voice. something that seemed to bypass their equipment and speak directly into their thoughts. Interface protocols initiated. Genetic markers confirmed. Awakening sequence commencing. The Pacific Ocean boiled. Not with heat, but with power. The crystalline structures that had first emerged near the Nautilus station now burst from the seas worldwide, their massive forms dwarfing aircraft carriers and skyscrapers alike. They rose like ancient giants awakening from slumber, water cascading from their gleaming surfaces in silver sheets. From his command center in NORAD, General Michael Davidson watched the satellite feeds with a mixture of awe and terror. "Someone tell me what the hell I'm looking at," he demanded, as the massive formations continued to rise. "Sir, we're tracking similar emergences in the Atlantic, Indian, and Southern Oceans," Lieutenant Sarah Parker reported, her fingers flying over her keyboard. The structures appear to be arranging themselves in some sort of global pattern. Above Earth's atmosphere, the Vraxian fleet responded to this unexpected development with immediate aggression. Their energy weapons lanced down from orbit, striking the rising structures with enough force to vaporize cities. But the beams simply fractured against the crystalline surfaces, scattering into harmless light shows. Commander Zixtal watched from his bridge as his fleet's most powerful weapons proved useless. "Impossible," he hissed through his primary breathing vents. No planetary defense system could have remained hidden for so long. No technology could survive the ends. His science officer interrupted, fear evident in all four of his eye stalks. "Commander, the structures. They're not just defensive installations. They're parts of a single system. The entire planet appears to be." Before he could finish, every crystal formation on Earth pulsed, in perfect synchronization. A wave of energy swept outward from each structure, forming an interlocking web that encompassed the planet. Where the energy fields met, they created geometric patterns similar to those found in the deep ocean trenches. In the Pentagon Situation Room, Dr. Amanda Sullivan had just finished briefing the Joint Chiefs when the system activated. The holographic displays showing the battle space flickered and changed, suddenly revealing layer upon layer of previously invisible energy fields surrounding Earth. "The planet has been protected all along," she explained, her voice filled with wonder. "These structures aren't just weapons. They're control nodes for a planetary shield system, one that's been dormant since before our species evolved." A Vraxian heavy cruiser, attempting to break through the energy web, found itself caught in one of the geometric intersections. The pattern pulsed once, and the massive warship simply ceased to exist, its matter converted into pure energy and absorbed by the shield system. General Davidson's voice cut through the stunned silence. "Can we control these things, or are we just along for the ride?" Before Amanda could answer, the crystal formations began to change. Their surfaces shifted, revealing internal chambers and what appeared to be control interfaces. More importantly, the symbols covering their surfaces started to transform, morphing into forms that looked surprisingly similar to human writing systems. "The system is adapting to us," Amanda realized, watching the transformation. "No, it was designed to adapt to us. We're not just witnesses to this. We're meant to be its operators." In orbit, the Vraxian fleet began a desperate maneuver, concentrating their fire on a single point in the energy web. Commander Zixtal had seen too many worlds fall to accept defeat now. Full power to all weapons. Break through their defenses before the system fully activates. But with each attack, the shield network grew stronger, converting the enemy's energy into more power for its defenses. The geometric patterns began to pulse with increasing speed, and new structures emerged from the oceans, each one more complex than the last. Deep within the crystalline formations, ancient machinery hummed to life, responding to a threat it had been programmed to recognize eons ago. The Vraxians had made a critical error in their invasion plans. They had assumed Earth was simply another primitive world to conquer. Instead, they had awakened something far more ancient and powerful than they could have imagined. And as the defense system continued to power up, one thing became clear. Humanity was about to inherit the most advanced weapons platform in the galaxy, whether they were ready for it or not. The underground research facility beneath Mount Cheyenne hummed with nervous energy as Dr. Amanda Sullivan stared at the holographic display, her eyes wide with disbelief. The genetic sequence floating before her told an impossible story, one that rewrote human history. "Run the comparison again," she ordered, her voice steady despite the weight of her discovery. Dr. Marcus Webb, the facility's lead geneticist, nodded and input the commands. Once again, the human DNA sequence aligned perfectly with the crystalline control interface patterns. "It's no coincidence," Marcus said, adjusting his wire-rimmed glasses. "These marker sequences appear in every human sample we tested. They're not junk DNA like we always thought. They're access keys." Above them, the battle for Earth's skies continued. The Vraxian fleet had regrouped after their initial losses, adopting new tactics against the ancient defense network. But down here, in this secure facility, scientists were uncovering a truth far more shocking than any alien invasion. General Davidson strode into the lab, his uniform crisp despite the chaos of the past 48 hours. "Please tell me you have something that will help us control these weapons, Doctor. The crystals are holding for now, but the Vraxians are adapting." Amanda brought up a new display, this one showing brainwave patterns. "It's not about control, General. It's about communication. These defense platforms, they were designed for us, or rather, we were designed for them." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. On the main screen, human neural patterns danced alongside energy signatures from the crystal formations. The similarity was undeniable. "The engineers who built this system," Amanda continued, "they didn't just leave us their technology. They left us their legacy. Human consciousness itself was engineered to be compatible with these weapons." Dr. Webb pulled up another display, this one showing historical data. "We found references to this in our own myths. The stories of gods gifting humanity with knowledge, of ancient powers sleeping beneath the earth. They weren't metaphors. They were memories." A tremor shook the facility as another Vraxian attack tested the shields above. General Davidson steadied himself against a console. "That's fascinating, doctors, but how does this help us now?" Amanda's response was cut short by an alert from one of the monitoring stations. Around the world, people had begun reporting strange experiences, visions of crystal interfaces, whispered instructions in unknown languages, and an overwhelming sense of connection to the ancient structures. "It's starting," she breathed, watching the reports flow in. "The defense system isn't just awakening. It's calling to us, to the potential that was built into our DNA millions of years ago." On the main screen, security footage showed civilians approaching the crystal formations around the globe. Where military personnel had failed to interface with the structures, children were walking up and instinctively understanding the controls. The ancient engineers had hidden their greatest weapon not in the technology itself, but in the human ability to comprehend it. "General," Amanda said, her voice firm with newfound purpose, "we need to stop trying to study these weapons and start remembering how to use them. Every human on Earth carries the knowledge. We just need to wake it up." As if in response to her words, the crystal structure nearest to the facility pulsed with new energy. The symbols on its surface began to shift, forming patterns that seemed to call out to something deep in their minds. Dr. Webb gasped as new data flooded his screens. The neural interface patterns, they're not just similar to human brainwaves. They're a perfect match for the development of human consciousness itself. We didn't evolve to think the way we do. We were engineered to think in a way that could one day understand this technology. Amanda felt a peculiar sensation in her mind, like a door opening to a room she had always known was there but never could find. Around her, others in the lab showed signs of the same awakening. The time had come for humanity to claim its inheritance, and with it, the power to change the course of the war. The first breakthrough came from an unexpected source. In Singapore, a 12-year-old girl named Maya Lin walked past military barricades and placed her hand against a crystal formation surface. The structure responded instantly, its entire network of symbols illuminating with brilliant blue light. Before the stationed guards could react, she had activated a secondary shield layer that the world's best scientists hadn't even known existed. Dr. Amanda Sullivan watched the footage from the Mount Cheyenne facility, her heart racing. "It's happening faster than we predicted," she told General Davidson. "The defense system isn't just accepting human commands, it's actively seeking out compatible minds." Across the globe, similar scenes unfolded. A street musician in Rio de Janeiro found he could make the crystals sing with harmonics that disrupted Vraxian communications. A mathematics professor in Terra discovered she could read the complex equations hidden within the geometric patterns, unlocking new defense protocols. "The system is using our natural talents," Dr. Marcus Webb observed, analyzing the data streams. Musicians, mathematicians, children with their more adaptable neural pathways. Everyone's connecting to it differently, but together they're building something greater than the sum of its parts. The Vraxians launched their most desperate attack yet, attempting to destroy the crystal formations before more humans could bond with them. Their fleet concentrated fire on major population centers, hoping to sever the growing connection between humanity and the ancient technology. But they were too late. In New York, a young engineer named Michael Torres found he could redirect the crystal's energy fields, turning the aliens' own weapons against them. In Mumbai, a group of students working together managed to extend the shield's coverage to protect previously vulnerable areas. Commander Zixtal watched in horror as his forces' attacks not only failed but strengthened Earth's defenses. "Impossible," he snarled, all four eyes fixed on the battle displays. These primitives couldn't have mastered such technology so quickly, unless his voice trailed off as a terrible realization struck him. Deep within the Cheyenne facility, Amanda made the same connection. "We're not learning this technology," she announced to the room of scientists and military officials. "We're remembering it. The knowledge was built into us, waiting for the right moment to surface." She stepped toward the facility's own crystal interface, her mind now understanding what had once seemed alien. The symbols rearranged themselves, forming patterns that spoke directly to her consciousness. Through the crystal network, she could feel others like her around the world, each adding their unique perspective to the whole. "The engineers who built this system," she explained, her hands moving across the crystal's surface with increasing confidence, "they didn't just give us the keys to their technology. They gave us the ability to improve upon it. Human creativity, our capacity for innovation. These weren't random evolutionary traits. They were tools designed to help us take their work further than they ever could." A massive explosion lit up the sky above as another Vraxian warship met its end, its attack reflected back by the now enhanced shield network. But this time, the defense system didn't just destroy the threat. It analyzed it, adapted to it, and grew stronger. General Davidson watched the battle statistics with growing amazement. They never stood a chance, did they? This wasn't just about defending Earth. It was about proving we were ready for this power. Amanda nodded, her eyes fixed on the stream of data flowing through the crystal interface. "The real test wasn't whether we could use these weapons," she said softly. "It was whether we could understand them. Not just as tools of war, but as part of our heritage, a legacy left by those who saw something special in our species." Through the crystal network, she could feel the truth of her words resonating with others around the world. Humanity was awakening not just to new powers, but to a new understanding of their place in the universe. They were the inheritors of an ancient trust, and the time had come to prove they were worthy of it. The Crystal Archives opened their secrets to Dr. Amanda Sullivan, like pages of an ancient book, each layer of information more staggering than the last. Within the secure chamber of Mount Cheyenne, holographic images danced through the air, showing the true history of Earth and its makers. They called themselves the predecessors. She explained to the assembled world leaders, their faces displayed on screens around the room. They were a race that had achieved what we would call technological singularity, but their achievement brought them to the attention of something worse than the Vraxians. The holograms shifted, showing vast fleets of biomechanical ships, their designs so alien they hurt to look at. The Harvesters, Amanda continued, her voice heavy. A species that saw advanced civilizations as nothing more than resources to be consumed. The predecessors lost thousands of worlds to them. General Davidson leaned forward, his eyes fixed on the images of planetary destruction. So they built Earth as a fortress. A last stand. Not exactly, Dr. Marcus Webb interjected, his hands moving across the crystal interface. Earth was their solution. A perfect hiding place for their legacy. They didn't just hide their technology here. They created us to inherit it. The holographic display changed again, showing the genetic engineering that had shaped humanity's ancestors. Complex strands of DNA twisted and reformed, carrying within them the keys to understanding the most advanced technology in known space. The predecessors knew they couldn't fight a conventional war, Amanda explained. So they created something unprecedented, a species that could evolve naturally while carrying within them the potential for technological mastery. They hid their greatest weapons in plain sight, disguised as a primitive world's evolution. Through the crystal network, they could feel the truth of these revelations resonating with people worldwide. Humanity's greatest achievements, their creativity, their adaptability, their unique way of seeing patterns, had been carefully engineered into their DNA. But why wait so long? The Chinese premier asked through her video feed, "Why not give us this power sooner?" The answer came not from the scientists, but from the Crystal Archive itself. New images formed, showing failed experiments on other worlds. Species given too much power too quickly, destroying themselves and their planets in the process. We had to develop on our own terms, Amanda said softly. Our understanding of technology, our social structures, our moral framework. These weren't just random developments. They were prerequisites for handling this power responsibly. A tremor shook the facility as another Vraxian attack tested the shields above. But now, the defensive response came automatically, generations of human innovation combining with ancient technology to create something neither the predecessors nor the Vraxians had anticipated. "There's more," Marcus said, his voice tight with emotion. "The predecessors left us a warning. The Harvesters still exist, hibernating in the space between galaxies. Our battle with the Vraxians, it's not just about defending Earth. It's about proving we're ready for the greater challenges to come." The room fell silent as the weight of this knowledge settled over them. Through the crystal network, they could feel similar revelations occurring in research centers worldwide. Humanity was not just fighting for survival. They were taking their first steps into a war that had been raging since before their species existed. Amanda stepped forward, her hand resting on the central crystal column. "The predecessors did more than give us their technology," she said, her voice carrying to leaders around the globe. "They gave us a choice. We can use these weapons like they did, fighting an endless war of survival, or we can find a new path, one that neither they nor the Harvesters ever imagined." The crystal pulsed beneath her touch, as if acknowledging the truth of her words. In that moment, the full scope of humanity's heritage and their responsibility became clear. They were not just the inheritors of ancient power, but the last hope for breaking a cycle of violence that had scarred the galaxy for millions of years. The United Nations Security Council chamber had never been so silent. The holographic displays showed the full might of the Guardian defense system, enough power to not just defeat the Vraxian fleet, but to erase their entire civilization from existence. The choice that lay before them would define humanity's place in the cosmos. "We have access to their jump gate networks," Dr. Amanda Sullivan explained, her voice echoing through the historic chamber. "With one command, we could send a cascading energy pulse through their transportation system. Every Vraxian world, every colony, every outpost, all of them would fall within hours." The representatives shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Through the Crystal Network, similar discussions were taking place in capitals around the world. The power to end the war definitively was within their grasp. General Davidson stood at the central podium, his uniform bearing the fresh scars of recent battles. "The Vraxians have shown no mercy in their assault. They've leveled cities, killed civilians. By any military standard, we would be justified in using everything at our disposal." The chamber's main screen flickered to life, showing a live feed from the Vraxian command ship. Commander Zixtal's once proud bearing had given way to something close to desperation. "People of Earth," his translated voice carried notes of both fear and wonder. "We request an immediate cessation of hostilities. We did not understand what we were facing." Dr. Marcus Webb's hands flew across his crystal interface, analyzing the transmission. "It's genuine," he confirmed. "Their fleet has pulled back to the outer solar system. They're actually afraid of us now." "Not of us," Amanda corrected softly. "Of what we represent. They've realized we're not just another primitive species. We're the inheritors of the most advanced civilization they've ever encountered." Through the Crystal Network, she could feel the conflicting emotions of millions around the globe. Fear, anger, desire for revenge, but also something more, a growing understanding of the responsibility that came with their newfound power. The Brazilian representative rose to speak. "We have before us the same choice the predecessors faced. They chose to hide their power, to create something new rather than continue an endless cycle of destruction. Should we not honor their wisdom?" "The Vraxians would not show us such mercy," the Russian delegate countered. "And what of the harvesters? We now know they're out there, waiting. Perhaps a display of absolute power is necessary to secure our future." Amanda stepped forward, her mind connected to the crystal network that now spanned the globe. Through it, she could feel the weight of history, both human and predecessor, bearing down on this moment. "The predecessors gave us their technology," she said, her voice carrying to every corner of the chamber. "But they also gave us something they had lost, the chance to see the universe with new eyes. They created us not just to inherit their power, but to learn from their mistakes." The chamber's holographic display shifted, showing the intricate web of defense platforms that now protected Earth. But unlike before, these structures no longer appeared purely as weapons. They were part of something greater, a testament to the possibility of evolution beyond conflict. "The Vraxians attacked us because they couldn't imagine power being used for anything but dominance," Amanda continued. "We have the chance to show them, to show the entire galaxy, that there's another way." General Davidson studied the battle reports before him, his expression thoughtful. "Sometimes the greatest show of power," he said slowly, "is in choosing not to use it." The Security Council chamber erupted in debate, but through the Crystal Network, a different conversation was taking place. Millions of minds connected through ancient technology, each contributing their perspective to a decision that would echo through the ages. In orbit, the Vraxian fleet waited in tense silence, their weapons powered down, their fate resting in the hands of a species they had gravely underestimated. The next few hours would determine not just the outcome of one war, but the future course of two civilizations. The crystal network hummed with the combined consciousness of humanity as Earth made its choice. Dr. Amanda Sullivan stood before the United Nations Security Council, her hands moving across the control interface with practiced grace. Around her, the ancient technology responded not just to her commands, but to the collective will of her species. "Target the Vraxian fleet's propulsion systems only," she ordered, her voice steady. "Disable, don't destroy. Show them the precision of our power." Through the network, millions watched as the Guardian platforms activated. Beams of pure energy lanced through space, threading between Vraxian ships with surgical accuracy. One by one, the alien vessels lost their ability to maneuver, trapped in Earth's orbit by a force they couldn't comprehend. Commander Zixtal watched from his bridge as his mighty fleet became still as stones. "Such control," he whispered, all four eyes wide with wonder. "They could have destroyed us all, yet they choose this." The next phase began immediately. Using the crystal technology, Earth scientists had crafted a message, not in words, but in pure information, downloaded directly into the Vraxian ship's computers. The history of Earth, the legacy of the predecessors, and most importantly, the choice humanity had just made. "We're receiving responses from their fleet," Dr. Marcus Webb announced, monitoring the data streams. They're requesting permission to send delegates, not to negotiate surrender, but to learn. General Davidson allowed himself a small smile. Sometimes the best way to win a war is to turn your enemy into a student. The Crystal Network carried the news across the globe. In cities still bearing the scars of battle, people emerged from their shelters to watch the sky. The Vraxian ships, once harbingers of death, now hung above them like stars, their weapons silent, their crews beginning to understand the true power they had encountered. The predecessors built these weapons to fight the harvesters. Amanda addressed the global audience through the network. But they created us to find a better way. Today, we honor both their technology and their hope. In the following hours, the first Vraxian shuttles descended to Earth under escort. Their delegates emerged not as conquerors, but as witnesses to something revolutionary. A species that had mastered the ultimate weapons, yet chose to use them for protection rather than dominance. Through the crystal interfaces, humanity shared their understanding of the predecessor technology. The Vraxians, their own scientists humbled by the complexity of what they saw, began to see the universe through new eyes. The very weapons they had feared became tools for learning, for growth, for change. "We were wrong about your world," Commander Zixtal admitted in the first official meeting. "We saw a primitive planet and thought we found an easy target. Instead, we found the future." The Guardian platforms continued their silent watch around Earth, but their purpose had evolved. They were no longer just a defense system. They had become a beacon, a symbol of what was possible when power met wisdom. Dr. Amanda Sullivan stood at the original crystal formation that had started it all, deep in the Pacific. Through the network, she could feel the changes already beginning. Not just on Earth, but throughout Vraxian space. Stories of what had happened here were spreading, challenging ages-old assumptions about the nature of power and progress. "The harvesters are still out there," General Davidson reminded her, standing at her side. "This may only be the beginning." Amanda nodded, but her expression remained hopeful. The predecessors created these weapons because they could only imagine fighting. They created us because they could imagine something more. When the harvesters return, they won't find divided civilizations ready to be conquered. They'll find something they've never encountered before. "What's that?" the general asked. "Hope," she replied, watching as another Vraxian shuttle descended for cultural exchange. "And the power to make it real." The crystal network pulsed with energy. Its ancient technology now fully awakened and transformed by the species it had been created to serve. Humanity had not just inherited the most powerful weapons in the galaxy. They had found the wisdom to use them to break the cycle of violence that had haunted the stars for millions of years.